Hello.
Hello.
Hola María, ¿qué tal?
¿Está despierto?
Por ahora, por ahora. ¿Quién está? I can see.
No, I can't see.
I can see either.
Estoy yo de vuelta y te veo a mí.
Hi.
Yeah, I'm on. I figured it out. It was some reason it was not working.
Anyone on?
Good evening, everybody.
Hi.
Hi.
Okay,
Wait a little.
okay.
Somebody's coming.
Bernie and Tammy.
Came back from the engagement party.
Okay,
We'll be there later, I'm sure.
okay. We're in Sefer Nechemia, Perek Gimel, Pasuk Aleph. Last few chapters, we know that the Persian king allowed Nechemia to come back and try to rebuild the walls of Yerushalayim that had not been rebuilt. The Beis HaMikdash had been rebuilt, but the walls around it had not been rebuilt. And it was described in Nechemia how despairing the community was because of that. So Nechemia felt it would be important to rebuild the walls of Yerushalayim. In this Perek Gimel, Pasuk Aleph, we are going to record who was involved in rebuilding the walls of Yerushalayim. So the first pasuk, Vayakom Eliashiv HaKohen HaGadol, Ve'echav HaKohanim. Eliashiv was the Kohen Gadol. He's the grandson of Yeshua Kohen Gadol, who was the first Kohen Gadol of Bayis Sheni. When we read the Haftorah of Chanukah, it refers to Yoshua Kohen Gadol. So Elioshev is the grandson. So his brothers are the Kohanim. Vayivnu et Shar Hatzon. They build the gate of the sheep gate. Not only do they build it, Heim Kidshuha, they sanctify it. Vayamidud Losav, they hang its doors. Va'ad Migdal HaMea Kidshu, it was sanctified until the Migdal of 100. We'll see what that means. Ad Migdal Chananel. So it was sanctified from the Sharat Son until these other gates. Rashi says, Sharat Son, Kach Shmo Shel Shar, that's the name of the gate. Hema Kidshuha, they were sanctified in La'oso Shar B'Kedusha Sa'ir, with the same Kedusha of the city of Yerushalayim. The Dal Soisov are the gates of the Shar. Ad Migdal Ameya, Kach Shmo Shel Migdal, that was the name of the Migdal. We're going to see that Nechemia is going to call upon many different coalitions that supported Nechemia's plan to reconstruct the walls. You're talking about the Kohanim, the nobility, the Leviim, ordinary citizens. There were 40 sections of this wall that needed to be built. They had to build it quickly because we know there were enemies, Sanballat, Tovia, which we've been introduced to, before they had a time to try to disrupt the building. The Sharat Son is the northeastern portion and was considered to be part of the Harabayas wall, was the nearest gate near the temple. When a Bechor, every animal that gave birth to a Bechor, so that offering was brought through this gate. Others say all of the sheep that were going to be used for korbanos were brought through this gate, which is called Sharat Son. These other towers, the Migdal HaMeya and the Migdal Chananel, were provided the gate with protection. Chafetz Chaim says that we're going to be given a lot of names listed in this parak as to who built what. So the Chafetz Chaim comments that Lashon Hara was one of the reasons why the first temple was destroyed. Here, Nechemia is listing forever the names of the people that dedicated themselves to rebuild these walls. You notice it says Vayakam, singular, not Vayakumu. There was a special gvura that a person had to stand up and say, I'm going to do this, and not to be concerned about the enemy, the Sora Yehuda Binyamin. Just like we saw when Ezra came back and he saw that all of these Kohanim had married foreign wives. And they were the first ones that had to get rid of their foreign wives. So they are also had to be the first ones with the tikkun of, because without walls you can't have a Beis Hamikdash. Yet it says Vayakom, not Vayakumu. It looks like Eliashib was the Iker who started and everybody followed. We see the same type of thing when Noah got drunk and his children, it says, Vayikach Shem Vayefet et hasimla. Shem and Yefet took a blanket and they walked in backwards so they wouldn't see their father's nakedness, and they covered Noah. Why didn't it say Vayikhu? It says Shem Vayefet. There were two of them. Why did it say Vayikach? Rashi says, Limed al Shem shnit ametz b'mitzvah yoser miyefet. It was Shem who really pushed the mitzvah first, and Yefet sort of came along. Therefore, the children of Yefet, Bnei Israel, the children of Shem, the Semites, were zocha to the mitzvah of tzitzis. So you see, when a person gets up and does something and people follow him, he gets the credit. Now they had to sanctify this gate. Son, the Migdal HaMeah Mokom she'onin sham meya omen b'chol yom. They
He's frozen.
So in that amens every day. So there was a shul. Another base. That's where the chick that
Amy, you're freezing. Amy,
was
hello? Amy, you're freezing. We can't see you.
These people wondering.
I wonder if you know,
Hi, sorry, we have a lot going on here. Can you hear us?
yes, now, yes.
But we're in Pasuk Bays. Every group that we're going to discuss, each worked independently, constructing their section of the wall, and in this way, the wall around the entire city was built. Rashi says, when it says Banu Anshe Yerecho, Shekach Min Agam. This was the custom. Halalo ayubonim kam b'chomot ha'ir. Each group built their section ad tashlum binyanam mutalim until the wall was completed. Va'acherim ayubonim samuch lebinyan rishon. So the people from Yericho started building their wall from where the El Yoshev people stopped. And as we go through today, describing each person's contribution, that's how the whole wall was built. Pasuk Gimel. Vetshar Dagim. Then comes the fish gate. Banu Bnei Asna. The sons of Hasna. Hema Keru. They put a roof over it. Vayamidu Dal Soisav. They hung its doors. Manulav Uvrichav. And their locks and the bars, which gave it, protection when, you have bars on a door, preventing people from breaking in. Dalet. V'ayadam echzik Meremot ben Uriah ben Akotz. That Meremot, who's the son of Uriah, strengthened the wall next to them. V'ayadam echzik Mushulam ben Brachia ben Meshavel. V'ayadam echzik Tzadok ben Bana. We see the Chafetz Chaim's statement of the importance of mentioning everybody's name by individual. Says the Ramat Vali, Achar kach izkir kol hamachzikim zeh achar zeh. This parak is going to give us a list of people. Kidei sheyitkayim zechutam l'dorei doros. So that the merit of their contribution of building the walls will remain forever. It's Lahodia Chibat Yerushalayim V'chomata. It shows how we're supposed to see the love of Jerusalem and the walls. Shekol mi shenatan yado lechazek hachomah nirsham l'dorei doros. Whoever gave of himself to build these walls were listed forever. Like it says in Yeshayahu, Chomatayich negdi tamid. The walls will be next, against me forever. So that refers to the people that were mentioned. Says the Ramah in Yoredeya, in Hilchos Tzedakah, Mikomoka, Misha Magdish Davar Litzedakah. When we go to shul, we see everything has a name. Somebody donated the Aron Kodesh, there's a name. Someone donated the parochas, it's donated in the name of somebody. So somebody donated the Ner Tamid or the Shulchan. Says the Ramah, Mutar la lichtov shmo alav sheyelo lezikaron. You are permitted in a shul to write the names of the people who donated these items. Says the Ramah, V'roi lasos came, and it's correct to do that. Says the Rashba, Meparsamim osei mitzvah. It's a mitzvah to publicize those who contributed to a mitzvah. Says V'hu makor lama shroshmim et shemot hamidnadvim al kirot beit hakneset. You will go into a shul, you'll see on the walls of the shul the names of the people who donated the shul. Ve'ein ze pagam b'kedushat beit hakneset. It's not a detraction in the holiness of the shul. Ki zehu kvodo shel beit hakneset shemidnadvim avuro. The honor of a shul is the names of the people that contributed to building that shul. And that's why Sefer Nechemia is taking such efforts to mention all the people's names, L'dorei doros, for generations. Here's the example. Says the Chafetz Chaim in his Sefer Shmiras HaLashon, V'hineim hayta lanu reshus livnot beis hamikdash. If we in our generation, the Chafetz Chaim died in 1933, so he's not that long ago. He said, if we would have had permission to build the Beis Hamikdash in our generation, we would have had to raise money. Jews around the world would have donated as much money as they possibly could have. So he would have a chelek in the building of the Beis Hamikdash. However, the Chafetz Chaim is talking about avoiding speaking Lashon Hara, because he claims that we're not going to be able to build the Beis HaMikdash unless we stop speaking Lashon Hara and having Sinas Chinam, because that was the cause of the destruction. So he says, "V'inyanenu ein tzarich kesef klal." For not to speak Lashon Hara, we don't need any money. We just have to stay away from speaking Lashon Hara and hating our fellow Jew. To hold on to harmony. How high will a person's name go if avoiding Lashon Hara is the cause as to why the Beis Hamikdash would be built? You don't need money. That person's name will also be inscribed on the walls of that Beis Hamikdash. Like it says, Kasher Nimtza b'Nechemia, Nirshemu Sham Lanetzach Shemot Anashim, Shenatnu Chelik b'Choma Shel Yerushalayim, Ve'alachas Kama V'Kama B'Bayis Gufa. That's just the walls of the city. Certainly those that contribute to the building of the Beis Hamikdash itself, which is people who avoid speaking Lashon Hara, of Alachas Kama V'Kama, his name will be mentioned there.
That's all true, but as you go on, you'll see, as you know probably, because you've looked at Perek, you have Meshulam, who was Nechemia shows because it was politically appropriate because he was worried that he would encourage those who were opposed to it, who we said were the enemies on the in Shomron. And you also have those who didn't contribute at all and still partook in it.
Right. So Bernie is
Maybe I'm getting ahead of myself.
documenting
Yeah.
from the Zakheim book that, of course, Nehemiah had uh, reasons why certain people were chosen to participate in it. Exactly. Uh,
But that's not to
he
take
says
away from
he
anything
says
you
he
said.
says Meremot was the temple treasurer, so he had a lot of revenue passing through his hands. So he was one of the most powerful men. As it says, there's a truism: who that controls the funds controls the policy, right? Who has the maya has the daya, right? So Meremot's team, as Bernie said, was led by Meshulam, who was married into a clan that may not have been so loyal to Nehemiah. So he co-opted Meremo and Meshulam because it helped him politically. Absolutely. Now, what Bernie said as well regarding people who did not contribute, let's look at the next pasuk, pasuk Hey. There was a town called Tekoa, and there were Tekoans who participated in the building. However, Adirehem, the powerful ones, the wealthy, lo heviru tzavaram. The tzavar is the neck, but you notice it's spelled without an aleph. So they didn't accept the yoke of personally building, ba'avodat adonehem. So Rashi says, Adireim Ashirim Shel Tekoa. They did not personally participate. Now, he says that Savar, the neck, is an important organ. It connects the brain to our heart, right? Our heart represents action. Our brain represents kavana. So it's a beautiful part of a human being. And Tekoa, Chazal say, was full of Tamid Chachamim. But they didn't use their Chachma to realize that they have to assist personally. And the ruler of the world is the Alufo Shel Olam, from the word Aleph. So that's why the word Savar is without an Aleph. That they didn't recognize the importance of building this. But even though the wealthy didn't participate, the rest of the Balabatim did. And they did the work. And some want to say that even the wealthy did, but they didn't do the way they could have. They had a better opportunity because they had more money. Says the Rambam in the Hilchos Beis HaBechira, Hakol chayovin livnos ulasai ba'atzman. When you build a Beis HaMikdash, you have to participate yourself. Uba mamonam, and your money. Anoshim v'noshim, men and women. Now, that's the building of the Beis HaMikdash. That's not the walls. But someone will say, without the walls, you wouldn't have been able to keep the Beis HaMikdash going. So you had to build the walls. We have the other thing. Today, the Chachamim say, we are potter from going to the army. Right? We have that's a big controversy today. And they also thought that they were potter from building themselves. Because the Zokein Eino Lefi Chvodo. But it's not covet for them to go out and build. But that they made a mistake. That the building is a mitzvah. And it's worshiping Hashem. And For example, if a Talmid Chacham goes up and builds a makeh, the gate around a roof, or himself goes out to buy chalas on Shabbos, there's no p'tur. It's not beneath his covet if he's performing a mitzvah. The Chafetz Chaim quotes the same thing when they built the Mishkan, Kol ish v'isha asher nodav libam osam. So it's an embarrassment to the wealthy of Tekoa that they did not participate. And that's why it's important for people to do it themselves, or at least to support yeshivas, to support Torah learning, if you have the ability to do that. What does Zakan say about Tekoa?
Look at the top of page 85.
Well, I'm here.
Yeah.
The Navi Amos was born in Tekoa. Amos is the he talked about social justice. And it was an agricultural community. They were conservative religiously and nationalist politically. So they were a significant part of Nechemia's political base. The mighty men, the nobles, the wealthy did not participate.
Why not?
They felt it was beneath their dignity to undertake manual labor. They couldn't see themselves working alongside shepherds and cowherds. Or Zakheim wonders that they didn't want to be involved in the Nechemia's project. They didn't want to spend money. As we're going to see, there was a lot of the wealthy took advantage of the poor. And in fact, the nobles of Tekoa had a vested interest in a politically weak Jewish leadership to preserve the status quo. They were the prime beneficiaries of that. They went along because political prudence, because Nechemia came with a royal writ to give him permission to do it. So you see, it's complicated. Back and forth, there were reasons to participate, reasons not to participate. Pasuk Vav. That Shar Yeshana, the old gate, Echziku, Yoyada ben Pasech, U'Meshulam ben Besodaya, Hema Kerua, they covered it, V'Yamidud Losav, they hung its doors, U'Manulav U'Brichav, and its locks. This gate had been there since antiquity. That's why it's called the Shar Yeshana. Pasuk Zayin. V'Ayadem Echzik Milatia Givoni. V'Yadona Meronotini, Anshe Givon V'Mitzpeh. These were the Givonites, and from Mitzpeh, other areas in Israel. They also involved L'Kisei Pachas Evranar. That was the governor of Eretz Yisrael, and some of these people had never been exiled, so they remained under his control. Yet they aided Nechemia in building this wall. As we know, he had reached out to that governor, and the governor gave permission. They also built, Rashi says, a throne in this area for the governor himself. The governor would have a place. Even though they were under control of this governor, they gave assistance to Nechemia. Says Zakheim, the involvement of diaspora Jewry in the activities of the state is a constant in Jewish history. Jews from abroad participated in temple ceremonies during the 3 pilgrimage holidays of Passover, Shavuot, and Sukkot. And more recently, diaspora Jews have been involved in the state of Israel's political military affairs, including the establishment of the military services during the state's early years. That's referencing the pilots that came from America and political campaigns and expansions of housing and settlements in Jerusalem and elsewhere. So that, again, we see parallelism between what's happening at the time of Nechemia and what's happening to the modern state of Israel. Pasuk Ches. Al Yodo Hechzik Uziel ben Archaya Tzorfim. The Tzorfim are the silver workers. They purified gold and silver. Like, on the way to the airport in Israel, Hatzorfim, Susie has bought silver from there. Silver and gold. Vayado Hechzik Hanania ben Arkachim. Vayazvu Yerushalayim Arachomar Chavav. But here the Vayazvu means they fortified. In Mishpatim, it says, Azov Tazov Imo, which means you should help. So sometimes the word Azov means to help and to strengthen. As they say in Nechemia, Vayazvu et Yerushalayim Arachoma. Pasuk Tes. Ve'ayadam echzik Rifaya ben Chur. He was a governor, Sar Chatzi Pelech Yerushalayim. Pelech means a district, means an area. So he was like a local governor. And he was also asked to participate in the rebuilding. They moved from east to west. They first wanted to protect the Beis Hamikdash. And because the other sides of Yerushalayim were surrounded by mountains, the northern area faced a level plain. So it was important to strengthen that wall early because that was for defense against enemies that might come. As we've seen, they threatened to come. Pasuk Yud. Vayadam echzik Yedaya ben Charumaf v'neged Beso. He strengthened the wall right next to his house. Vayado echzik Chatush ben Chashvanya. Pasuk Yud Aleph, Mida Shenis, which means a similar measure, which says the length of the wall that he built was the same as the length that we just finished. Who did it? Hezzik Malkia ben Charim, the Chashuv ben Pachat Moav. This was Chashuv was the son of the governor of Moab. Ved Migdal HaTanurim, the tower of the ovens. What is this? Makom Tanurim Le'ofot Sham Lechem Le'yoshvei Yerushalayim. This was the place where it was a bakery for the city of Jerusalem, because they didn't want a bakery right in the middle because of smoke. So there was already, just like Los Angeles cleaned up its act. When I grew up in the 60s, they got rid of heavy industry, so there was less smog. So Yerushalayim, they wanted the tanur for the bakery to be on the outskirts, so that there wouldn't be pollution in the city of Jerusalem. Pasuk Yud Beis 12. Ve'ayado echzik Shalom ben Alochesh Sar Chatzi Pelach Yerushalayim, another governor of the other half of the district of Jerusalem. Here it says, interesting, Hu Uvnotav, that Shalom's daughters helped in the building, like we read. Anoshim v'noshim, said both the Torah and the Rambam. The Ralbag learns that Benotav means suburbs, that there were other suburban areas around Jerusalem. That's what Benotav means. It doesn't physically mean that the daughters. But I like the fact that it was the daughters themselves that did it. Pasuk Yud Gimel, et Shara Gai, Hechzik Chanun v'Yoshvei Zanoach. This was built by Chanun. They lived in Zanoach. Hema banu v'yamdu d'altrav manulav uv'richav. Ve'elef amah b'choma. They built 1,000 amos. An amma is 2 feet. So they built the wall, the stretch of wall they built was 2,000 feet. Ad Shar Hashpot. Let's see. Need that. Let's read your Dalit. That Shara Ashpot, the dung gate, Hechzik Malkiah ben Rechav Sar Pelech Beit HaKerem. That's not the Beit HaKerem, which is our Beit HaKerem, but there was an area there called Beit Kerem. Look at this. Hu Yivnenu. That is Beloshon Atid. That's future. V'yamid al dotav manulav u'brichav. It says the same thing, he hung the doors. The question is, why did it say Loshon Atid? He accepted upon himself to build. And the previous ones, they had already built it. However, the Meforshim say, really, no, he had already built it as well. But the Torah, Nechemia is telling us how important it is for a person to be makabel on himself to do something. Like Rabbeinu Yonah and Shari Tshuva, where in the month of Tshuva, Elul says, Kasher Yishma Musar Chachamim Vamochichim Yakshiv Yishma V'yichna V'yachzor B'Tshuva. A person listens to Musar that he should do Tshuva. What does he do? Yikabel Belibo Kol Divrei Tochachos. He should, for the future, accept in his heart the fact that he had been doing wrong. As long as he does that, he's makabel on himself for the future. I'm going to do better. He has taken himself out from darkness to light. He understands what he has to do, and he does truth, at least in his heart. V'yekabel. He accepts for the future, biyom shamo, divrei mochiach. Someone gave him tochacha, someone chastised him, but he accepts to do better. V'yekayim alav liot oseb kechol asher yoreu. And he's accepting on himself, he's going to do whatever they tell me to do from now on. And lizaher, I'm going to be careful not to do wrong things. Also, biyadu atshuva v'nefach lishacher. At that moment, not when he does it, when he's makabel to do it, he is considered a new person. Ume'ed asher kipel kazot b'machshavto v'gamar aleh kacha b'livavo, kanal nafsho zchut v'shchar al kol mitzvot v'musarim. He already accepts the reward. So as they said, when the Klal Yisrael built the Mishkan, vayelchu vayasu bnei Yisrael, they didn't do it yet. They were makabel on themselves to do it. But the Torah writes that they did it. They took them a long time to build. Once you're makabel to do it, it's as if you did it right away. So up until now, we've been using the words vayivnu, they built, in past tense. It could be that they had not accepted on themselves a certain thing that they were going to do. They started building, but it's not like they put in their minds, I'm going to build a certain amount. They started to build without a Kabbalah. Only here does it mention that this person was makabel on himself to build. And there is a special schar for someone who's makabel in advance. Chazal say in Kiddushin, Gadol mitzuva v'oseh mimi she'ena mitzuva v'oseh. Greater is the schar for someone who is commanded to do something and he does it than someone who's not commanded. Tosfos explains, because someone who's commanded to do it, he's worried that maybe he's going to do something wrong and he's not going to do exactly as he's supposed to do. Similarly, someone who's makabel on himself to build a certain thing, he has an achrayus on himself now, and therefore he gets more reward. Perhaps that's why this pasuk reverts from past tense and uses the future tense, hu yivnenu. Okay. Pasuk tesvav. V'es shar ha'ayin. Hechzik shalun ben kol chozer shar pelach hamitzpah. Hu yivnenu v'yitalenu. Again, he built it, he covered it. V'yamidut losav manulav uvrichav. This gate of the spring, like an ayin is a spring, like Ein Gedi. There was a king's pool that fed the king's garden. And they built that wall until the steps that descends to Ir David. That was the western wall of the city, extended southward until opposite the graves of David HaMelech. Acharav echzik Nechemia ben Azbuk, a person named Nechemia, who was a governor, Sar Chatzi Pelach Beit Tzur. He was the governor of half of the district of Beit Tzur. He also built Ad Neged Kivrei David. He built the wall opposite the graves of David. Until the Giborim. Some say this refers to the Sanhedrin. They were Giborim Batorah. It's not that they were mighty warriors, but that they were warriors in Torah. I mentioned that one of the opinions is that the daughters themselves helped their father. Zakheim says, in general, women do not figure prominently in Nehemiah's memoir. Nevertheless, Israelite women's tradition of fierce nationalism is well documented. Of course, Miriam, Dvorah, Yael, Esther, but these unnamed daughters of Shalom, who were obviously high-born, followed in the wake of their forebears. One modern Orthodox commentator writing just after the founding of the state of Israel says, the modern chalutzot in Israel are following an ancient precedent. He was commenting on Nechemia. He was foreshadowing the women pioneers who helped rebuild modern Israel. The daughters of Shalom had no problem taking on physical labor. We know the stories of the early kibbutzim, that the women worked side by side with the men, milking cows and going out in the fields, etc. Pasuk Yud Zayin. Achra v'chziku alaviyim rachum ben bani. The Levium worked too. Al yado hechzik chashav yasar chatzi pelach ki'ila lepilcho. Achra v'chziku achayim Bavai ben Chenadad sar chatzi pelach ki'ila. Vaychazik al yado Ezer ben Yeshua sar mitzvah midat shenit He added another wall. Mineged alota neshek hamiktoa. This was an area that they kept the weapons, the neshek, to the armory of the warriors. Achrav hechrech zik Baruch ben Zvi mida shenis. He added another wall, mina miktoa, from the corner at petach Beit El Yoshiv. Now he comes back to the wall that the original Kohen El Yoshiv built. Achrav hechzik meremos ben Uriah ben Akotz mida shenis. Mi petach Beit El Yoshiv vatachlis Beit El Yoshiv. They buttressed and further strengthened these walls. V'achrav hechziko hakohanim anshe hakika. Achrav hechzik Binyamin v'chashuv neged beitam. Achrav hechzik Azariah ben Masei ben Anania etzel Beso. Achrav hechzik Binu ben Chenadad mida shenis be'ed Azariah ada miktzor v'ada pina. So they continue building the walls. We're just getting the names of everybody. Pasuk Chafei. Palal ben Uzai mineged hamikzoa, from opposite the corner of Amigdala Yotzei mibeit hamelech Elyon, that extended from the royal palace Asher lechatzer matara. Pedaya ben Parosh, that's the prison courtyard. Now, Hanesinim. Who are the Nesinim? These, if you remember, when Yoshua came into Eretz Canaan, they were one of the Sheva Amim that escaped. And then they came back dressed like other people. And they deceived Yoshua, allowing them to convert to Judaism. And they were the water carriers. They went into exile to Bavel. But many of the Nesinim came back with Koresh, when Koresh allowed them to come back. The water gate, where the water was brought in, they built their wall along that wall, because that's where they lived. And that's where they were. Now, the Nesinim initially were treated in some ways as Jews. Over the next 500 years, we ostracized them from Yiddishkeit, and the Kusim became non-Jews. And that's the wall that they built. The people from Tekoa, again, these were not the wealthy people. Me'al shar asusim, the gates of horses. Hechziku hakohanim ish leneged beso. Achrav hechzik tzadok ben Imer neged beso. Achrav hechzik Shmai ben Shchania shomer shar mizrach. Further names of people that continued building walls. Achrav hechzik Hanania ben Shlemia, v'Chanun ben Saluf. Hashishi mida sheni. Achrav hechzik Meshulam ben Brechia neged nishkato. His chamber means his house. Achrav hechzik Malkai ben Atzorfi. He was a smith at Beit HaNesinim v'Achrochlim, where the Nesinim and the Rochlim were like the peddlers that sold perfume. Neged shar mifkad v'ad aliyat pina. Uvein aliyat pina l'shartzon echziku atzorfim v'Rochlim. So there are 40 sections that were built, that were named by the psukim that we've learned. Now, our enemies were awoken. Pasuk Lamed Gimel. Vayehi kasher shamat Sanballat ki anachnu bonim et hachoma. When Sanballat, we were introduced to Sanballat, he was an enemy of the Jews. When he heard that we were building the wall, Vayicharlo, he got angry. Vayichasar bey, Vayaleg ala Yehudim, and he ridiculed the Jews. He said that God has abandoned them, their muzzle has gone down. What do they think? They're going to be successful? It's all based on Hashem. He didn't realize that Hashem was now mashgiach on them. He had done all these things for Ezra and Nechemia with the king, and this Russia didn't understand He was working b'derech hateva. According to natural law, the Jews are weak, they can be destroyed. But he didn't understand that for the Jewish people, it's all a malam and hateva. HaKadosh Baruch Hu controls the mazel. And therefore, his ridiculing is not going to lead to anything. So, Vayomer lifnei Echa. So he spoke to the population of Shomron, the Chel Shomron, and to the army. Vayomer mayudim am lalimosim. What are these weaklings, these Jews doing? Hayazvula ma'izbacha yicholu bayom. Will we allow them to do that? Haychayut avanim. Are they going to give life to these stones? Me'aromat ha'afar ve'emas rufot. They're burnt and they're charred, and they're going to bring life back to these lifeless stones. V'tuvia ha'amoni etzlo. Remember, we said Tuvia was an Amoni. Either he had converted or he was an Eved. Vayomer gam asher em bonim im yalesh shualu pratz chomas avneim. Even a fox who's very weak can destroy their building. Now, the pasuk reverts to Nechemia's tefillah. Shema Eloheinu, he says, "Hear our God, ki ayinu buza, we are ridiculed. V'ashev cherpatam rosham, turn their ridicule on their heads. Utnam leviza be'eretz shivya, and let them be taken themselves into exile. V'al techas alavonam, don't cover their sins. V'chatatam ilfanecha al timacha, don't erase it. Ki yichisu neged abonim, because they have attacked the rebuilders of Jerusalem. V'nivnet hachoma, let us rebuild the walls. V'tikasher kol hachoma ad chetzia." So, when they had rebuilt half the wall, vahilev la'am lasod, the people were eager to continue and proceed in the building project. So let's hope that all the ridicule and the anti-Semitism, etc., that we are being subjected to also gets, we should daven the same way, that it should fall into the heads of our enemies as well. In the next parak, we're going to see that Sanballat and Tuvia are going to recruit other indigenous people, Arabs, the Ammonim, the Ashdodim, from Moab, from Shomron, from the Bekaa Valley. Jews then were also surrounded by enemies on all sides. Samaritans to the north, Arabs to the south, right, Saudi Arabia, Ammon to the east, the Philistines in Ashdod, in Gaza. So all four Persian provinces participate in the attempts to thwart the reconstruction of Jerusalem. So this foreshadows the events that takes place immediately upon the creation of the state of Israel. On the night of the 14th, 15th May 1948, the armies of 5 Arab states, Egypt, Jordan, Syria, Lebanon, and Iraq, crossed the borders and began the invasion of Palestine. It's truly amazing how little changes in the Middle East over the span of the centuries. Nothing changes. The world continues to refuse to recognize the sovereignty of the Jews over Jerusalem. Israel's neighbors in the Middle East cannot come to terms with its right to Jerusalem as its capital, or with the very notion of a Jewish state.
It hasn't changed.
Moreover, like the enemies who confronted Nechemia, some would almost seem to prefer a Jerusalem that is desolate to one that is developed and beautiful, as long as the Jews cannot call the city their own. So like Temi said, history is not changing. It's just replaying itself out. Any comments, questions?
That's the tragedy.
Arot.
Gonna be.
What was that?
I said that's the tragedy. That's they only hate the Jews.
So we can only say Chazak v'Amatz.
Chazak v'Emad. Look what Nechemia did. He went on and built. And the people went and built, and they accepted the responsibility, and they went and did it. That's the lesson we have to learn.
Well, they're doing it.
Yeah.
They're doing it, but the world hates us. That's the problem. Hate the Jews.
Okay.
Everybody,
Shkoyach.
Okay.
everybody-
Yeshikoyach. We'll pick up next week.